Welcome everyone to today's session, Empowering Accountants, Navigating Opportunities, Challenges, and the Implications of AI in Marketing. My name is Charles Clark from BOMA, and I'm really thrilled to be joined today by Mark Jenkins, who's CEO and co-founder of The Gap. Hi Mark, how are you?
I'm great, thanks. Good morning, everyone. It's evening here, 9 p.m. in New Zealand, 9 a.m. UK. So we've just watched a beautiful moonrise. I guess hopefully you've been watching a nice sunrise and it's a sunny day your way.
In terms of today's agenda, there's kind of 5 key topics that we're going to be covering, and Mark and I are going to sort of tag team a little bit on them. He'll be covering the mindset shift, so learning how to position advisory as a core part of your firm's value. We'll both talk about AI without using your voice, so how to use it to save time, but also some of the things to be aware of and how to keep your brand identity intact. I'll talk a little bit about marketing made easy and how BOMA helps you do this with consistent client relevant messaging. Mark will then explore advisory delivery tactics, and especially around the GAP's tools on how to streamline that delivery. And then we'll go and close out with some client-focused growth. So applying what you learn to help those same clients grow, adapt, and thrive in what we all know is a pretty challenging and interesting time. So Mark, I'll pass over to you.
Awesome, thank you. And welcome again, everybody. So I'm going to talk about 3 different mindsets that you need to have when you're positioning advisory as part of your firm's value. So the first one is that it's about how you perceive your relationship with your clients. So do you see the relationship as transactional or transformational? So transactional would be reactive. And look, most of us, of course, want to be transformational, but we get trapped in this compliance world where we end up in a transactional flow quite often, just as a result of the sheer volume of work that you have coming through. So if we're being transactional, that would be reactive. That'll be waiting for the next year's work to come around. That'll be waiting for a client to contact you about things coming up for them. One of the yardstick measures of this would be how many outbound phone calls you're making to your clients, or how many outbound emails you're starting versus how many you're responding to. And I'll talk a little bit more shortly about some of the risks associated with a transactional relationship. If you're being transformational, of course, that's proactive. So that's forward-looking, that's curious, that's wanting to be a strategic partner with your clients. And I'll talk about that a bit shortly as well, and the value of that in the eyes of the client. It's also whether or not you are asking your clients what their goals are, and discovering what their problems and challenges are, and offering them a solution to those roadblocks or challenges, or a way of working on those problems and challenges with them in the form of a service. And so this is quite an important distinction, that you don't have to be curious and provide lots of answers over the phone or over email. It's about being inquisitive, asking questions, interpreting the client situation, identifying challenges and problems that you can solve together with them. So that's the first mindset. Are you transactional or transformational, and how can you position that in the eyes of your client? The second mindset I need you to be conscious of is how you are approaching advisory or value-added work. And there are 2 distinct parts to the way that you approach the work. There's the art of that work, which is your unique style and language that you use with your clients. And then there's the science, the systems and the processes that you put in place. And so if you think about the compliance world, it has a huge amount of science, that all of the tech stack that you use to produce a set of financial statements, right through from the AML or the onboarding and the professional clearance, and then the gathering of the work papers, and the tax return system, the general ledger, the work papers, the maybe workflow scheduling. There's so much science in that process. And then you bring your own art to the way that you work with your clients, which is your personality, the language you use, the way you talk to your clients, in my case, the bad dad jokes that you make, that you hope that people will laugh at, or the extent to which you speak Accountanese to your clients versus plain English. And the thing about the art is that this is, in an AI world, not something that can be replicated. in an AI world, art becomes quite generic. And we'll talk a lot more shortly about the risks associated with AI and how you can make AI your friend rather than replacing you. The other thing about art is that it's not scalable. Art is in your head, it's the way you work, your art, your unique way of talking to clients is not the same way somebody else in your team will talk to their clients. And so, and often the art that you have without any science, if there's no structure or no system or no process, it's hard for your team to learn how to follow what you're doing and add their own art and unique style to that. So it's the same in the advisory space. We've got to make sure we have some science. And if you're doing marketing to your clients, you need some science and you need some art to that as well. And the third mindset is how your clients perceive you. So the first one was how do you perceive your relationship with the client? Are you transactional or transformational? The second one was the combination of art and science, and this one is about how your clients see you. And there's some pretty scary statistics here coming out of a survey by Intuit done recently, where they surveyed about 500 business owners, and the results of that survey, only 15% of businesses view their accountants as a key strategic partner, and 1 in 3 view their relationship as transactional. And that's the concern. If we have only 15%, and they followed on actually in that survey, and 84% of people who viewed their relationship as a strategic partnership said they got extremely good value. So the clients are wanting a strategic partnership. They're not necessarily seeing you as the one who will offer that. And the risk is if they see you as a transactional relationship, if we get AI, MTD, more of this, we get more robotic process automation, and automation, there's potentially a risk that compliance margins will fall and people will vote with their feet for the cheapest option, and we don't want that. If we have a strategic relationship and the clients consider they're getting high value, then they're there with you because of the value you provide and the value of the relationship. And the other part of this is how your clients see you. Is a survey that we did of around about 200 accounting firms at our reunion event last year. And 76% of people said their clients are not aware of the current services that they provide. And so this is part of that transformational relationship as well, as making sure your clients understand the services that you offer. So that's the mindset that I guess I want you to take into this. Are you transactional or transformational? Are you combining art and science? And are you educating your clients on the value of a strategic partnership with you as a result of being curious, asking questions, engaging with your clients in a proactive way, and helping them to see that there's something more than just the compliance work? Now let's jump into the AI conversation. And I'll talk for a bit, and then Charles will share some really interesting information too. So AI is there to save you time while keeping that brand identity intact, that art, that uniqueness that's you intact. And the beauty of BOMA and The Gap is they both allow you to do that. And it's really important that we don't fall into the trap that AI can do everything. There are some real challenges with taking that approach. We're not saying you shouldn't use AI, and it's certainly accelerating. Confidence in AI is growing. Almost everyone's excited. This was a report released a couple of months ago by Carbon. And if I just look at the actual stats from that result there, the survey that they did, they said that 85% of the people that they surveyed, again, this was about 500 accountants that they surveyed, 85% of them were excited about it, but they believe that only 19% of other people that they worked alongside were excited about AI. We did the similar survey for all of the people that registered for this webinar and the New Zealand Australian one earlier on today, New Zealand Australia time. And the results were a little bit different. 60% of you were very excited about AI, and 36% of you thought that 36% thought that the others are other people that you work alongside are as well. So we've got this diverging view The other statistic that's interesting with the degree of acceleration is that AI is doubling its capability every 7 months. And so what we're seeing happening already, quite a big shift. Last year, 12 months ago, there was a lot of talk about robotic process automation. Now all the talk is about AI agents. What will the talk be about in 12 months' time? Where's this heading? One of the big concerns is data security. This is out of the survey. And so, using particular, for example, note takers, then where is the data being stored? And when you ask the question of that could, if you're recording a meeting that's client sensitive data, where is that data being stored? Let's be careful to make sure that that data is secure. We have an AI note taker in the Gap, and that is completely contained within the software, which is rock solid safe, as what to make sure that's safe. The AI anxiety is declining, but not for everyone. And I'll share some perspectives on AI shortly. But I do want to say there's a growing risk and concern about AI slop. Now, this is a term used for AI agents relying on other AI agents' information to perpetuate this information, which is not necessarily based with clear citations. And I'll let Charles talk about this a little bit more. But the risks associated with AI slop are quite high. We could have content pollution. In other words, the content that is being served up to you is not necessarily correct. And it's being perpetuated by more and more people surfacing that same content, and then it becomes a truth in itself when it's not, and it's so that's one of the risks. The second risk is obviously about trust and authenticity, and so if we have a lack of trust, you spend years building trust with your clients, and then if they see that you're using AI and they can tell, then you might break that trust, and it's certainly not authentic, and it's not in line with that art of your voice. But the biggest concern is that feedback loop, AI agents relying on other AI agents, which will diminish the value of the content over time, and the whole system could collapse. So that's a real risk. So if we just look at a few perspectives that came out of this state of AI and the accounting industry report from Carbon. So it's like having an expert on hand to immediately do a variety of tasks at a moment's notice. Number of things my AI expert can do keeps growing and is critical to my accounting practice as I seek to grow. So this is one of the 84%, if you like, or the 60% in your case, of the people that are excited about AI. Seeing, working alongside doing a number of tasks at a moment's notice. Then we've got someone from the United States saying in the short term it's a nice additional tool, but over the next 1 to 3 years AI will be built into every tool we use. In the mid to long term, it's anyone's guess whether AI causes more issues than it solves. So maybe this is someone in that 19% or that 36% based on the people that we surveyed for you for this event, where someone's actually a little bit concerned about where this might lead to. And then we have different perspective here from Canada, a powerful tool for automating tasks, enhancing efficiency, and providing data-driven insights and research, allowing me to focus on high-value client advisory and strategic growth. My concern here would be to make sure that the data-driven insights are real. They are from a secure source, that we can find out where they are. They're not AI slop, they are real. And again, the AI that we use in the Gap is held within our platform. And so there's deep subject matter expertise, as there is with BOMA as well. So we want to be careful that the data-driven insights are coming from deep subject matter expertise. And most people who have that deep subject matter expertise don't make it available everywhere on the internet. So just be aware of that concern there. Someone here, United States, tentatively excited for the future of AI with a lot of reservations. And then a last thing here, a powerful tool that can augment human potential, offering new ways to understand the world, solve complex problems, and improve lives. So we definitely know that AI is here to stay. There are some concerns about it. There's some excitement. It's to work alongside your business, and we're just here to help you to build up the science, using a bit of AI, and also making sure that you're keeping that unique voice secure as well. And just on the base of that, a few of these comments have come from our event that we had at the Auckland Viaduct Event Centre, and so I met Taylor Swift there and congratulated her on her engagement. And so you know this is not real, right? I look way younger than that in real life. The point I'm making here is that if somebody can see that's fake, and that's coming from you as a trusted advisor, something that they can see is not real, then that trust is broken pretty quickly. So really important to make sure that we maintain that relationship of trust, our unique voice, our art, and our science. So I'll hand back to you now, Charles, to do a little bit of an AI reality check. Over to you.
Fantastic. So look, I think as Mark said, there's so much potential with AI, but there's also a lot of unknowns, and even the people in charge admit that there's a lot of unknowns. And this quote is from Sam Altman. We all know he's the CEO of OpenAI who run ChatGPT, and this was actually taken from his official podcast in the last couple of months. And basically, he said, it's surprising that people trust AI so much, given that it hallucinates, and we know that it's not super reliable, and we need to be honest about that. And the irony is that usually when technology comes out, it starts off buggy and then it gets better and better over time. What they're actually finding, the researchers with AI, is that as the models do keep getting more powerful, especially in terms of their math skills keeping on improving, and obviously the ability to create images and do lots of things, the number of hallucinations and their handle on facts and figures have actually gotten shakier, and they don't really understand why. And that's not a surprise. We know that these systems are, sort of held within black boxes, and pretty well understood that even the people who work on them don't necessarily understand how it all works. But that phenomenon of sort of AI hallucinations is becoming more and more prevalent. And on a recent test that Sam Altman actually alluded to, the hallucination rates of the newest and most powerful systems like ChatGPT 4, 4.5, and 5, and others were as high as 79%. And these aren't just small glitches, these are bold and confident errors where it generates fabricated information that seems incredibly realistic and authoritative and plausible, but is made up. And I actually had a different slide for this, well, a different visual, but this caught my eye this morning. So Deloitte, massive global company, nearly 450,000 staff, very financially and tech savvy. And this was run in the Australian Financial Review, so sort of their version of the FT. And they're basically having to admit and pay back to the Australian government several £100,000 for a report that they did in August, which had a whole raft of fake citations and invented references. Now, this was quite embarrassing for them because when they produced it, first report made no mention of the fact that they had actually used AI to do anything. So Mark mentioned that sort of data analysis piece and sort of the need to be transparent. Well, they've had to be transparent, but only after the fact of all this sort of news coming out. So for a company whose website touts they've been around for 175 years, and the importance of clients' trust, it's a real own goal. And I think it just goes to prove if one of the biggest accounting sort of consulting firms in the world can come a cropper by it, it can happen to us all. And again, to Mark's point, trust and reputation be damaged or eroded by these sort of unchecked AI outputs. It really does kind of bring it home to the fact that when we're acting on behalf of our own clients, whether that's BOMA, GAP, or yourselves, really need to be thoughtful about how we use it. And so here are just a few, I suppose, best practice tips, because obviously, AI is with us. We saw those perspectives. It will no doubt continue to be with us. But here's some 3 best practice tips. And the first one is treat every piece of AI generated content as potentially flawed until it's reviewed. Now, obviously, this is important no matter what your business is, but especially in a regulated field like accounting. any mistakes that AI makes aren't just embarrassing, but they can actually lead to real life compliance breaches and legal liabilities, not to mention the potential for lost business. So the way to do this is to prioritize that human in the loop oversight and make sure that when they do have that human in the loop, it's not just a once over lightly. Again, we talked about those hallucinations, appearing very authoritative, but actually a really robust validation. So going and checking if it quotes something, is that quote real? Does that person exist? Was it just made up? And I think just one last thing to weigh up is that I write quite a few ChatGPT prompts in BOMA for various things, and I was doing one the other day as part of a demonstration of our own AI in BOMA. And my prompt for an email was actually nearly twice as long as the email that I asked it to generate. And I was doing it as a way to sort of demonstrate what can be done. But again, that was kind of a false economy. I could have written that email probably in half the time that it took me to not only write the prompt, but then also go through and correct it and make sure it had the right tone of voice and things like that. So yeah, so again, IA is great, but there are some issues, and sure, as you use it in different areas in your business, some good best practices to take forward. Now, Mark mentioned systems and processes earlier, and that really applies to what he was talking about in terms of advisory and that sort of piece. But it also really applies to marketing because, marketing can be challenging. Therefore, having a bit of a process and a system in place is really important. And the nice thing is that if you do have a process and a system in place, and this might just be something basic like you spend a couple of hours maybe with some of your other partners or staff, and you come up with a marketing plan that you can stick to. And by plan, it doesn't need to be all singing, all dancing, ads, the whole thing. It could just be like, right, we commit to these 4 or 5 things. And we know these things like sending emails out to clients, being a little bit active on social, and having some good blogs on our website for the algorithms from ChatGPT, but also Google, are going to pay dividends. And I think this sort of leads to this page here. And this is all quotes we've had from people who, when they come to BOMA, and often we demo to them and we ask them, what were the challenges that you've had previously with marketing? And they would list them off. And for many, the biggest one was just like, look, it's really hard to know where to start. We're not marketing experts, even though I have met many accountants who have turned their hand to marketing quite successfully, especially owners. So it's not an area we're expert in. Also, it's a huge time suck. And when we are working on servicing our clients and all the challenges that that brings with, then you're sort of saying, great, we're going to do marketing and the content that goes with it and updating all those pages. It's just a little bit too difficult. And the worst thing is if it then being squeezed into either your lunch break or weekends, or maybe your practice manager or marketing person's lunch break and weekends. That doesn't really endear one to the act of marketing if you know that you're going to be spending your evenings working on it. I think also, there's a cost element. So whether it's the cost of producing good content, and that could be advisory content like in the gaps, or it could be sort of more compliance, tax, sort of general educational info like is in BOMA, that is a real concern, to do even a blog once a month. We've heard of people paying £300 or £400 for that. We've met many accountants in England who are paying maybe a third party, maybe an agency or a freelancer, thousands of pounds just to do a few social posts and some emails, and that sort of it doesn't really stack up in terms of the ROI. So I suppose these pain points are really what BOMA is here to solve. A little bit like the Gap is here to solve those same issues around selling your services and advisory. And so we are really the only digital marketing platform out there that's purely for accountants and bookkeepers. And we know this because we've had so many users come to us from MailChimp or Buffer or Hootsuite, Constant Contact, and they say, look, those other systems are great. Oftentimes they have too much functionality because they're aimed at retailers, they're aimed at enterprise customers, things like that. But the main thing is that they don't have the one thing we really want, which is something to say to our clients, something to help educate them, something to build that relationship off the back of, or in terms of advisory, something to help us sell our services. And so you can see here a little screen grab of our content library. And the content library is specific to the UK. And it's not just on one thing, it is on a whole range of subjects. So if you want to talk about compliance and tax, fantastic. There's also management. You can talk about managing people, more nitty-gritty HR. If you want to talk about the latest in technology, it's all in there. All subjects and matters that you're able to then use to send out on your website, on your email, and on your social channels. And just a couple of words about those three channels. If you think about your owned media, it's your website, your social pages, and your database list. And just a few tips in terms of best practice for those three channels that you own. So your website is the heart of your online presence. And so obviously you would have your About Us and your services, but make sure also to have those little key things, those little indicators that you can be trusted. So we're talking social proof, we're talking testimonials and case studies, talking Google reviews, whether they are just on your Google site or maybe you pull them through onto your website as well, which you can do. Any sort of badges or awards you have from Xero, MyOb, etc. And make sure also to have a blog. If you do have good content, whether it's from something like BOMA or you create it yourself, you need to have somewhere on, online that you can have a repository of that, both so that people can go and read it to get that education element and also see what it is that you're about and but also because the algorithms both from Google and the AI platforms do use it to help surface you on those search pages. Now, in terms of your next step, it's really social media. So your social pages are really critical, and some people use them as a window onto what it's like to work with them. I've seen other firms who use them purely as an opportunity to showcase what it's like to work for them. So they use it as a recruitment tool. Either way, it's a great place to, I suppose, let your hair down a little bit. You can obviously share lots of interesting things on there in terms of education, but you can also share, what you're up to every day, the human focused content. So maybe success stories that you or a client has had. Maybe it's your involvement in community operations. Just a nice way to sort of bring those stories to life. And then lastly, your email database. So even after, I think it was invented in the mid 70s, email is still your best and most direct line to people's attention. Think of people with their phones, they're on them all the time, and every phone, every smartphone at least, is connected to their email list. Now, the nice thing with email is that it's very easy, or at least it's very easy in BOMA, to think strategically about what you're sending out. And the old days of sort of spray and pray, so send out one email to everyone, irrespective of the content, those days are definitely gone. Nowadays, it's all about thinking what is specifically going to be of use, of value, of interest to a segment of my users, and then I'm just going to send them that one thing. Now, I'm not saying you still can't and shouldn't do your general newsletters and updates, but if you're thinking, great, I've got directors, they're a critical part of my client base. Now, if I have critical director information, there's been a change to them, or maybe it's an agricultural or retail sector, I just want to talk to them about this. The great thing is that you can pretty much send a huge number of emails to your group or to these groups as long as they're relevant. The second you stop sending them highly segmented and sort of relevant information, then you risk them turning off and losing their attention. So email is great, and if you haven't yet segmented your database, as I suggested in terms of what sort of client, industry, services you offer them, that's definitely one of the strongest things you can do to improve your email uptake. Now, just quickly finishing off in terms of BOMA, if I could say, what are the 5 things that we deliver? And the first would be that, we've got the content. So it's fresh, it's relevant, it's insightful, it's coming out every week. And the great thing is that you can customize it. So we talked about the importance of, of using AI, but, keeping your brand voice, your brand identity. And the same is true with the content in BOMA and by extension Gap. If you want to customize it for your own perspective, put an example that's relevant to your situation, your client situation, not only do we, recommend it, we highly encourage it. That's definitely a great thing to do. Now, by having the ability to send out this information easily to clients and prospects. It helps you nurture those relationships. And obviously the point of nurturing at least clients is both to maintain their loyalty in their business, but also the opportunity to upsell them. As Mark will obviously cover in terms of that advisory piece, many accountants that we work with are quite happy with the number of clients they have, but they say, look, if they could grow by doing one thing, the easiest thing would be to upsell them on services that they don't already offer. And it's often because the clients don't realize maybe that they offer them or that they need them. The other thing that's good for is building your presence in the market. That's obviously a very important thing, whether it's to help with new leads and prospects coming through, or if it's from a recruitment side. And then lastly, it saves you time and money. Now, oftentimes this is something that all accountants will say, but it's really hard to sort of put into words exactly how it does save you time and it does save you money. But I think when you've got the content there, and all you need to do is edit it, and it's all within the one system. So sending it out via those different channels is a breeze. Whether you're doing it or maybe a more junior person like a practice manager is doing it, if you can, enable them to do it in minutes, not hours, that's going to be a massive time saver. And obviously then they can dedicate that time, hopefully, to doing more client-facing work. Speaking of client-facing work, Mark, why don't I hand back over to you?
Yeah, nice. So a great example there of the science and also that ability to create your own content. To write it, use the science that's in BOMA, but to be able to have some flexibility in the way that you use that as well. And it's the same at The Gap. We've got that total flexibility where you can change your pre-work, you can now change the delivery documents, that sort of thing. So you can add your own unique style, save that as a template and use that again and again. So really exciting that we've got that enhancement just recently as well. So I just want to show you briefly how you can close that awareness gap that I talked about, that third mindset, and also reinvent yourself as a transformational advisor in the eyes of your client, and also help your clients to see the breadth of services that you offer just beyond compliance. So the simplest way to do that is to produce a value gap analysis report. Many of our members are sending these out as part of the annual financial statements to their clients. I'm going to show you how you can build one of these shortly. So it's getting on the front foot. It's taking the data that you already have from your client, showing them what's possible, and in terms of cash flow improvement, profit improvement, and indicative business value improvement. A couple of other things to make the advisory visible is to create a services list. Avoid that accountanese. We've got great wording inside The Gap as well for all of the services that you could expect. Even if you don't use our proposal writer, that's fine. You can still use the descriptions in there. But the main thing we're wanting to do is to give some science to your team and to yourself to make you more efficient, but to keep that authentic voice and that branding and everything the same for you. So I'm just going to reshare my screen with a different window. Bear with me a moment and show you the value gap calculator.
Yep, that's showing through.
Right, thank you. And so apologies, this being in dollars. We of course have the pounds version, but to stream from New Zealand across to our UK portal and back to here and have that all going through Teams is going to be a bit slow. So when you go inside the Gap, obviously you've got all the bespoke services in there and proposals if you want to use them. That you've got your services and pricing is all down here. We've got this value gap calculator. We've also just released last week our Gap Academy, which is full of courses, tips and tricks, mindsets, videos, recorded content, a list of our coaches, a whole chat and community aspect there. So really excited about that. But this is the value gap calculator, and I've opened up one example here where I've got some fictitious data from an annual accounts set of annual accounts, and presumably we're in the middle of an annual accounts review meeting. We've done the first half of the meeting going through the financial statements. We're showing the value we've already provided, the financial and the tax position, and now we're looking forward. Ideally, we would have asked the client in some pre-work before this meeting, what are they wanting to achieve, what are their goals, what are their problems and challenges, are they interested in how they can find out how they could make more money or improve their cash flow. Clients always tick the box for that, and that gives you permission to have this conversation here. And so just thinking about that transformational relationship. So this example here, the client has debtor days at 60. Let's see if we can reduce those down by, say, 20 days. That's going to free up a huge amount of cash for the client, and they might not even be aware of this. So that Steve Jobs quote, people don't know what they need until you show it to them. They may not realize, they might just be feeling the cash flow strain and not understand why that is. You can do the same with inventory and work in progress. If their payable days are really out of control here, it's taken them 52 days on average, maybe use some of that cash to reduce their payables days by 10. There's still going to be plenty of cash left over, and that whole cash conversion cycle is changing. Likewise, again, in the annual accounts review at this point, the different drivers of sales, and in this case, let's look at transaction value, and to lift that transaction value by 5% is going to add another $75,000 in this case for this business. That sounds like a project that's worth investigating. And the margin, you might want to look at what the margin was a year ago. And again, you're the ones who've got the expertise. You should have a bit of an idea about what the benchmark gross margin should be for that client. And if you're not sure, whack that into Copilot or ChatGPT and get an answer, and compare that. And in this case, we're looking at improving the margin by 2 or 3%. In this case, 3%, and that's going to add another 157,000. And then, of course, we want to make sure that we're going to cover our own costs, so we can put our costs in here, and that's all dynamic, and we can see then that the size of the opportunity for the client, an improvement of profit, improvement of cash flow, even after they've paid you. So that's taking the relationship away from transactional and price to a value conversation instead. So in the annual accounts review, you then generate this report, the value gap analysis report, and the client can see, well, that's what you've talked about doing. The how-to is the service that you offer, which is the cash flow and profit improvement meeting. And so then again, once you revisit that, you'd send them some pre-work for the cash flow profit improvement meeting. You'd come in here, you'd turn the tactics on. And then when you're looking at that cash conversion with them, you can pick from a list or create your own, add new ones in here if you want. Things like measuring results, negotiating better payment terms, using automated invoice reminders, and that's an opportunity for some value-added training that you could offer them potentially. Equally, you could show them how they can improve their transaction value, so they can again use technology more, use a sales checklist for their team, or educate their clients on value. So multiple different tactics in there. And again, I'm going relatively quickly in the interest of time. Just you can see here to lift margin, maybe some job-based budgets, and track some time. And then once we've done this is a 90-minute meeting. We're getting to the end. The client can still see the value. We're generating a report for them, which not only shows them what we've talked about before, but it's got what they are going to do. And so that forms the basis of ongoing meetings where you check in on their progress on freeing up that cash. You might get a forecast out of that. You might get some management reporting as a result of this, but you're certainly going to get more work. And by being proactive and staying in touch with your clients to see how they're tracking, and ideally measuring their results as you go, that they're going to see you as that strategic partner, and they're not going to see you as a transactional relationship. They're going to see you as someone who's invested in helping them to run a better business. So that is, in brevity, the way that you can deal with those mindsets that I was talking about that transformational relationship. What I'm going to do now is just move on to the next segment here. I'll just share my screen again. We've talked about how we make this visible, and now how do we pull this all together? So what can you do to make sure you're focused on growing your business by growing your own clients, combining the concepts that Charles has shared, the AI, using AI as your friend, as an enabler. I've shared with you a few ways you can use AI. We use AI within our platform, as does BOMA as well, but the data is all safe. So make sure you're thinking about how you'll shift from transactional to transformational. Think about that art and science. Don't try and do marketing without any science behind it. Don't try and do advisory without any science. You don't do your compliance work without some science or some tech. So make sure you do that. AI is not going to replace you. It's going to work alongside you. We want to be careful where the AI is going. That's that human intervention that Charles talked about. Be consistent in your storytelling and your selling, telling your story and selling your value. That's your own digital voice that Charles talked about. We've definitely got to close this awareness gap, because in the age of automation, clients are going to expect that it's going to cost them less for the compliance work, and so we need to shift to a value conversation, and we do that by making advisory visible. So just in terms of some next steps, Charles, do you want to take us through where we go to from here?
Thanks. Yeah. Yeah. So if any of you haven't already given the Gap or BOMA a try, I do know that we have some Gappies and some BOMA users on us. You can take a photo of those, either QR code, and get a free trial of the Gap and BOMA for the periods there. Now, the great thing with both of those is, both in terms of try before you buy, but both platforms offer really good training on onboarding. So whether it's yourself or various team members who you want sort of brought up to speed, you won't have to worry about that side of things. I think we're right on the 45-minute mark. If anyone does have any questions, myself or Mark, do send them through. Just while we wait for anything to come through, Mark, is there anything else you wanted to add about getting on board with the Gap?
No, I think it's all there. Visit our website, thegaphq.com, if you want to find out more. We very much want you to move into that transformational relationship with your clients. We think it's super important right now. Your clients need you right now.
Mm. Fantastic. Well, look, I think if no one has any questions, we'll wrap it up there. I'll let you guys get on with your morning. Mark and I will go and have a cup of tea and and get ready for Wednesday, because we're dialing in from the future down here. So thanks so much, everyone, and thanks, Mark, for joining us.
Yeah, thanks everyone for being here. My pleasure, and thanks, Charles, for your work on this too. Bye for now.
Okay.